I have illegible handwriting, and optimizing your nervous system, like it brings together so much of all of this wonderful stuff that you both do, and music and medicine and well-being all kind of brought together in this project. So I'm just wondering about the seeds of that, like how you came to set it up and how you worked out how to combine your expertise to create this thing that you do together now.
It definitely came straight out of play. I had a breathwork experience many years ago, and after that I started getting into it by myself as much as I could, day after day. And I met Torunn through breathwork, and then we just became neighbors, and we just started hanging out more and more, and exploring, experimenting, and playing around with all kinds of basically embodiment practices. But it was no intention of creating anything really. It was just playing.
Yeah, it was just us two hanging around. The COVID had just broken out, so Robbin couldn't travel and I couldn't do my retreats, so we were kind of stuck there. At Nesodden, outside of Oslo, close to the forest, so it was like, okay, let's hang out and have some fun. And then, geeks as we both are, having fun is like, okay, let's explore what happens if we do this or this. Or this.
Yes. What was that first breathwork experience like then? That must have been powerful.
Yeah, that was quite mind-blowing. Yeah, I had done plant medicines and things like these for some years, but I had no idea about the breath or using the breath, so I was quite astonished to suddenly. I actually didn't know I was going into a breath work. It was a sound bath, a gong bath, but then he started instructing us to breathe, and I went for it. And to find myself just breathing, and then eventually breaking into tears and feeling my whole body, every cell of my body opening up, and it was.
Do you think that helped? Sorry.
Not to just get the experience that what we are capable of just by using our bodies.
Yeah.
Just that fundamental concept, or that notion. It's like. Yeah, that's shifted the course of my life quite a big way.
Because you went in there without any expectations either, right? Do you think that's an important part?
Yeah, expectations are, and now I have a lot more expectations when I go into a session than that time.
How do you manage your expectations now, and how do they play into the experiences that you have?
Expectation or whatever is there. The point for me as I work and practice now is, okay, it's here, or what's here, and whatever it is, how do I feel in my body in this moment? And what do I notice in my body? What's the most prominent feeling in my body? Just in a purely physical sense, where can I feel the most in my body? And I breathe into that, and I relax in the presence of that. And I feel that in as much detail as I can, and just keep relaxing and keep.
So it's much more of a somatic thing than a sort of, solving problems or finding new ideas or any kind of visual element. You really focus on the somatic.
Yeah, definitely.
And do you feel like your work in breathwork, a question for both of you, is kind of dissolving the distinction between like the physical and the mental?
I don't know. I never been really into that distinction between the physical and mental from the beginning. So,
wow, never.
I don't know. Yeah, I just see like the body or this whole organism as one thing, and it's impossible to split between the physical and the mental, because whatever affects our body affects our mind, and whatever affects the mind also affects the body, or it's like always in connection continuously.
It's amazing that you never had to learn that, that you weren't conditioned out of that.
Yeah, probably I was conditioned, but I don't know, some part of me kind of never really fully believed that there is a distinction here.
But how we practice these days is going straight to the feelings in our body. And it's like much like a Vipassana meditation, where you just sit with physical sensations and you get more and more intimate with them. And we use the breathing to enhance the physical sensations and to feel more of our body, basically, to get more awareness in our body. So we shift from, usually we spend a lot of time with our awareness on the mental activity, and we're here. So we use the breathing to enhance and intensify feelings, the felt sense of the body, so we can bring more awareness into the body.
And how do you...
Usually in whatever insights and ideas, creative ideas, anything, it all comes, but thanks to due to just going to the physical sensations and working at welcoming them and feeling them in as much detail as we can.
Okay, so you're not thinking about you're not sort of thinking about melodies, for example. If we take musical creativity, you're not thinking about melodies when you're in that state. It's more of an after effect.
Yeah, I try not to.
Yeah.
But sometimes if something comes, I also let myself hear it or feel it.
And do you usually find that it comes back to you afterwards, and that if you were supposed to remember it, then there's some kind of hook or residue?
Now that I do these type of practices continuously or regularly every day, it's like I try to set myself in a state where it's kind of accessible, more or less, or as much as possible, the whole time. So yeah, for me, I don't so often go into very extreme states to get the creative flow or creative ideas.
You mentioned over a message to me, I think, when I first reached out, that you don't use music in your sessions with people. And that you'd sort of tried it a few different ways, but decided that was better for you. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, the way we work with breathwork in OYNS is that we use the breath to support the feeling awareness. And if we have a lot of music, the music can be it can take the session in a specific direction. Like music can be very emotional, or it can bring about associations. So it there is something there that is driving the session. But we want to facilitate for a very deep listening to the body, and then it's very beneficial to have no music or no kind of external disturbances or anything that takes the focus away from the deeper listening, so that you can feel what is actually really going on without anything around. And also it helps for the learning process, that that I can do this process without this music, without anything at all. I can do it standing or walking or wherever I am, whenever. It doesn't need anything else for me to be present in my body.
That makes a lot of sense, because when we did it, it was with music, and it really does, if there's, especially with the kind of when something sounds like it's from a particular ethnicity, if something sounds kind of Japanese or African drumming, you're you're there in your imagination. And that I found really like fun but quite distracting at times. And I don't know how you experience that.
I even sometimes experience it the other way. Like there's some music that I feel has been particularly designed to be like free from any kind of connotation. And with that, I just feel like I really hook into it and start exploring like where's the story here, if it feels like it's been designed deliberately without story.
Right. Okay. So you're trying to be like, I know you've tried to make this without connotations, but
yeah, I think if I totally agree with what you were saying about when there's music you respond to it. I think it's automatically there's this collaboration going on for me, which is I'm searching for something that means I don't have to listen to what's inside quite so much if there's anything to kind of enter out into. Is that something that grew out of your lockdown exploration and kind of like joyful playing with the possible ways to engage with all of this? Did you kind of start with having music be part of your practices and then take it away?
Yeah, we started having music as a part of the practice, yeah, but we took it away when we got in touch with a breathwork modality called vibration. I don't know if you heard about it. They always do it completely without music, and yeah, we both had such great transformational experiences with this practice. So actually, after being introduced to that, we started going more in that direction.
How did you discover vibration?
It was, I think, through this big breathing conference online a few years ago, and then the Vibration International head teacher, he was giving a workshop there, so we kind of just coincidentally bumped into it, and we tried this one session and we were like, wow, this is breathwork.
And I think why it's shifted our breathwork practice so much is because it's also a meditation at the same time, basically. So again, the breathing is only there to support feeling awareness. We don't breathe to space out or to have these amazing ecstatic experiences. We breathe to bring awareness into the body, because that, as we understand it, is the whole. I was gonna say the whole point, but like.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because I think the mystical experience, it is at the heart of many of those breathwork practices. And I think that maybe can be problematic for people's expectations in some cases.
I think the little risk is if we go for those experiences, if we only go for those experiences, we risk bypassing a lot of things. Whereas if we are always focusing on bringing more awareness into our body and becoming more okay with what's happening in the body, then we are unable to bypass anything. So yeah.
And when bypassing happens, 'cause that's an interesting one, so I'd love to kind of just stay there a little bit and unpack it. When bypassing happens in breathwork, what is going on there and how does that work? Is that like tuning deliberately into some of the more kind of visual or like sensory elements as opposed to listening to the emotions that come up, or like what are kind of the mechanics of bypassing in a breathwork context?
Yeah, anything that you can do to avoid feeling what's happening in your body in the present moment. And you can see it in the form of expression of repetitive patterns, like repetitive body movements or repetitive sounds or something that people are doing. And you can see it if people are not willing to really be present with themselves. So there are all kinds of things that we can do to distract ourselves from what is really happening in the body. And also mental images and memories and fantasies, all these kinds of things can be enjoyable and entertaining, but not necessarily what brings us closer to healing and transformation.
It must be easy to conflate memories and fantasies and visions with what is kind of supposed to be happening, perhaps for a newcomer. Is there some kind of priming or guidance that you've found that you end up wanting to give to help people kind of separate those things?
Yeah, we learned a lot of priming and guiding from Paul Hughes, this director of Vivation International, who's such a great teacher of this embodiment work. So yeah, we basically prime people in how to get in touch with their bodies and how to do that. How do you feel your body? Many people don't even know what does it mean to be in your body. So there are a lot of like practical little exercises we can do before going into it, but also the whole awareness of, yeah, what are we here to do? What is this all about, really? Yeah. How can we listen to the body, and why? Why is listening to the body maybe more crucial than going into memories and fantasies?
Why is it?
Yeah. Also, well, in English, at least, it's so easy to talk about the body as though it's a machine. You know, that metaphor is really deeply in our language, or at least that concept. I don't know if it's the same in Norwegian.
Probably to some extent, yeah. Something hurts, go there, fix there, or take a pill to fix it. Like, instead of looking at perhaps what feelings are really bothering you. That could be like a thing that really opens flow in the whole body, just by becoming more okay with what's happening there.
And do you have kind of you know, many people associate, you know, certain body parts with particular emotions. Do you have that kind of a map as well? No.
I don't believe that is beneficial.
I'm inclined to agree.
Because emotions, I mean, emotions, the way we talk about them are basically like bodily sensations and the labels that we put on those sensations. Yeah. So you can talk about anger and, oh, I feel the anger and anger should be here. It's like, I don't believe in that. I don't experience it that way. And also scientifically, that's not how it works. Yeah. Like, for one person to be angry can feel completely different than for another person. And being angry about one thing can feel very different from being angry about something else. So we don't even need to label the sensations in our bodies as anger or sadness or fear. All we need to do is to actually listen to what is happening by paying attention to the physical sensations that we can't feel, and it doesn't matter what we name it.
There's a fantastic book by Lisa Feldman, neuroscientist, How Emotions Are Made.
Yeah, I love it. It's very much up to date on how this works. Yeah,
and it's you know, there's I believe there's no emotion label that is kind of universal in all cultures. Like,
yeah, they have kind of proven that this whole theory of universal emotion is not actually working. So it's not actually, cannot be true.
It's incredibly empowering, because, you know, from being like, oh, I feel this jealousy or this, you know, you know, it's it just takes all that away, and like you just realize that it's your own narration entirely.
Which can be kind of quite static and crusty compared to the process of actually going into the feeling and reconceptualizing it. Is that something you found, that the emotions change anyway once you're engaging with them in the ways that breathwork has brought you?
Yeah, absolutely. Once you engage with emotions at the physical level, you notice that they are changing constantly, moment by moment. There's never like, there's not 2 times in your life that you will have the exact same sensation or like combination of sensations in your body. So yeah.
So
Yeah.
just when we start to, it's not only that it's kind of moving as we let go of our resistance, basically, but if we feel something here, and if we manage to tune that feeling in well enough, to get intimate enough, to get meditative enough with the sensation, we notice that it's not this massive stuck sensation, but it's subtly changing and moving in the whole time already. And that starts to directly, or like in a moment, it kind of pops the bubble of it being like, oh, this thing, but it's just, oh, it shifts from negative to it start to become fascinating.
Yeah, because the moment we experience that change is already happening, we drop our obsession about changing it.
Yeah.
And when we can, like, oh, it's actually changing already, I can just relax here in the presence of whatever is happening in me, then we can really enter into.
So the feeling doesn't really have to change. Our relation to it changes. And the feeling is the same, but I feel great now.
How does that relate to the ways that you find that you want to put words to your emotions and to emotionally relating to others in your lives, conversations about like feelings, how one makes each other feel, like, because I feel like so many disagreements or entanglements that we can get into can come from having a like traditional, overly rigid but unexamined sense of what our emotions are. And for you and your work, you're constantly updating and refining and kind of like reconceptualizing. So yeah, I'm curious about the wording that goes with that and whether that's fluid as well.
Great question. I mean, one way to communicate to communicate and to relate with others without getting trapped in this, you make me feel sad or you make me feel angry. One thing is to just say, I notice this happening in my body right now when I am with you. And that is, in my experience, always bringing more connection than talking about what was my emotional concept of what happened in me that was caused by something you did. It's very mental, but we can also go like straight to the body when we are relating, like, okay, now I'm sitting here with you, I notice some tension in my stomach, I notice that I'm smiling and that my chest is opening, I'm enjoying this. There are so many ways of communicating without going into these boxes.
But it's freaking hard to communicate like this when we've been doing it quite differently for all our lives. And the whole thing about just feeling our feelings as purely sensations is it takes work and practice.
Yeah,
but it's worth it. It's really.
We were talking a few days ago about the concept of getting like triggered by things, you know, and it's a word that's everywhere because there's so much kind of trauma, so much of a trauma narrative everywhere. And we were sort of noticing, we're like, maybe that's really not a useful concept, this kind of war metaphor, this battle metaphor of ammunition. And we were thinking of how it might be useful to change that.
Yeah, this is also what we are trying to bring about more awareness of, like, also, yeah, what does it mean to get triggered, really? And can we be triggered by anything else than ourselves or what is happening inside our bodies? It's like, I am noticing this happening now in my body, in my nervous system. Yeah, it's a bit unpleasant, and I can explore that with curiosity.
Yeah, so rather
Instead
than
of saying like, what you said now triggered me, what does that really mean?
or having to curate your life via avoidance, you know, it's.
We usually use the word activation, both in when we guide, like in the breathwork practice, but also in daily life. Okay, I'm feeling a bit activated now. I think for me that word opens it kind of detaches a bit and give space to, okay, I'm activated. I'm not sure what happened. Activation for me is like something is coming up in me, and it's from, as far as I know, it happens now, but it's probably something that I have been suppressed since I was a child, but it's coming up now.
So in some ways, it's a release. So it could be almost a positive part of the process that might involve letting go in that conceptualization of the thing.
Like every activation is an opportunity for growth and transformation, I would say. But sometimes we get like overactivated, maybe, or we are getting so triggered that we are not able to use the opportunity. For transformation. So that is also something to be aware of. And when we work with these things in our retreats, we also bring in this window of tolerance, like how much can you tolerate before this is not a healing process for you anymore. So yeah, if it's like far out of your window of tolerance, it's more likely to become a re-traumatization. But if you can tighten up these experiences that we do also with the breathing, we can like level up the intensity to where you are in your kind of threshold zone, so that you can safely expand this window of tolerance and tolerate more and more of these activations or triggers. I think like protecting ourselves completely from whatever is bringing up something will not help us grow.
There's a really nice thing that David Bowie says that's similar to that, where it's like if you're in the water and you can touch the ground, you're not in the right place. You got to go a little bit further out, just to where you can't touch the ground. You're just outside your comfort zone. Like you're not so far out that you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just teasing the edge of your comfort zone and how much there is to learn at that edge, rather than just jumping into this thing that terrifies you and then feeling like, oh, I did it.
It's so interesting because, again, when we get intimate enough with feelings as purely physical sensations, this kind of, or not kind of, it becomes resourcing, it becomes supportive. When we, like, from being in a state of what, there's like, oh, this feeling is really intense, but if I manage to, maybe with help of my breath or guidance or a lot of practice, I manage to actually bring my awareness into this feeling, and I start to again see all these subtle changes. I start to by myself just creating this, moving inside my own window of tolerance again, just by tuning in the feeling more.
I was doing it yesterday at the dentist. I was getting a procedure done, and was this sort of like, I was like, oh my God, I'm really anxious. And I was like, wait a minute, it's just adrenaline. Oh, cool. Like I've just got this adrenaline rush.
That's an interesting alchemy there, because I feel like that's a kind of positive collaboration between thoughts and feelings. And it's almost as though the realization, oh, this is just adrenaline, was kind of transmutative.
But yeah. It's always going to be an exchange, isn't it? Because you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still putting good label on it, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I was just feeling curious about, and then that tied into it really perfectly. The relationship between thoughts and feelings in the kind of traditional therapy paradigm is very different, it sounds like, from the way that you're recalibrating this and what you do. Would you say that a lot of traditional therapy is not necessarily helpful to actually engaging more holistically with experience?
What do you mean with traditional therapy?
I guess kind of like
talk
therapy, psychoanalysis, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay, so the Western approaches, not the traditional, or what I would call traditional therapies. But yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
The modern therapies, yeah. Yeah, I think
Yeah, I
in a
guess
lot
talk therapy is a better way of phrasing that.
yeah. Yeah, I'm a medical doctor myself. I have been working inside the Western tradition of healing. And I mean, the way we look at it there is like, yeah, there's uh, it's very far out for me, at least. Yeah, I don't think it is beneficial, and I don't think it promotes health to look at the body and mind as two like separate entities that have nothing to do with each other. You know.
You don't find any dissonance then when you're in sort of medical practice?
I'm not in medical practice anymore.
Was there dissonance?
Uh, yeah, sure, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
sorry.
any practice that or any therapy that does not include body awareness, I would be a bit skeptical about. Actually, yeah, I've never said that, but it sounds true.
Yeah.
If you're only talking and like there's always like you're not if you're not aware of feelings in your body at the same time and bringing that in and working there as well.
I was going to say hypnosis, but that's very embodied as well. Now that I think about it, it is because it's that directed, like feeling very, heavy feeling. It's still.
And in hypnosis, you also bring about other types of brain waves where it actually works in another way to work with words. It's like when we were young children, we were also mostly in this theta and delta waves where most of our patternings is from. So when we go into hypnosis and someone can take us into those same brain waves, it's also possible to reprogram through words in those states. But that's different than just sitting and talking about our stories and our problems and these kind of things.
Have you had much experience with hypnosis?
A little bit, yeah. But more with like yoga nidra and self-hypnosis and other practices that I can deliberately change the brain wavelengths. Yeah.
Do you think that relates to making music and being in that I suppose maybe any creative state, but particularly sort of music production, music creation, where you're sort of have this sort of repetitive sonic input?
I'm not familiar with hypnosis much, but I definitely feel hypnotized by making music. I go into some place that as you say, much later come out of, and I'm not sure where I've been or how long it's been.
The time distortion is unbelievable, especially with electronic music. I find it's really.
And I don't sit so much with repetitive. My music is more repetitive when I sit and play the harp, for example, but it's less repetitive, I think, when I make electronic music. Then I sit and, I mean, the beat may be going, but I'm tweaking these little tiny things here and there. So it's always.
Okay, so you're using the word repetitive in a different way. For you, those tiny tweaks negate the sense of repetition.
Yeah, but of course there's a lot of repetition in the background, but that's just the background. That's not where I am at.
Is it helpful to have the background there as this kind of incubatory context container, and you appreciate it going on so that you can be more tuned into what you're tuned into?
Having that repetitive in the background, or
yeah,
for sure, and also with the harp as well. When I sit and play, I play very often. I play quite simple things, but I play them over and over and again, and yeah, but also there it's kind of, yeah, yeah, the repetition opens up for more subtlety, I guess. Like
What
in
drew
little.
you to the harp?
I worked a lot with a Colombian doing plant medicine ceremonies, and he played the harp, and I was mesmerized for many years, and eventually he sold me his harp. So I started playing. So it's just a couple of years ago, and I haven't studied harp, so I wouldn't call myself a harpist by any means, but yeah.
But do you find that sometimes a lack of technical skill in a particular instrument really can open up creative avenues, uh, almost more than something that you're more proficient in?
For me, it's a balance, or that there's a fine line, or there's a sweet spot of like wherever my skill is at. If I can be just where I can play quite confidently, but not so it gets boring. But there's like this fine little a sliver of the spectrum where if I'm where I can keep myself there. Yeah, it wasn't really an answer to the question, perhaps, but
But no, I mean, I'm not sure it was really a question. I think I'm just having thoughts
but
out.
but when I do electronic music, I mean I know music theory quite a bit, but I found myself just actually now the last weeks, because I think I transposed one project and it became another key, and I never really got what the new key was, and I found myself just hitting, like making melodies and notes that
Yeah,
was outside my box, basically.
yeah. I don't really know music theory. I'm also much earlier in my journey with music than either of you. Um, but but I'm almost afraid to learn about music like any more than I already know about music theory, in case it closes things down in a way that's difficult to get out of, you know. I'm like nervous about that. What's your approach? I mean, either of you, if you're what's like how does a song begin for either of you?
For me, it begins often hearing a melody somewhere. Yeah. And often comes in a meditative state. For example, if I'm walking slowly in nature, or if I'm breathing, or yeah, just if I'm present with myself and with my body, then I can, yeah. If there's not so much other noise in my mind, I can hear the melodies coming down.
I always get it when I'm going to the toilet, when I'm like, as I'm like walking into the bathroom to go to the toilet, and it's like, it's slipping into the body, you know. It's like slipping into the body's needs, and then that's when, you know, these melodies will.
Yeah.
I'm still working on finding that that place to create music from. When I create electronic music, I'm more high on coffee, and I'll just push out beats and melodies.
Well, coffee, that should make you need the bathroom quite a lot. So I mean, try and
Yeah.
try and tune into it there.
But I feel like I've just spent 2 months making electronic music, and I feel like I'm squeezing out the last bit of an old way of making music, or my old way of being very like quite high, it's quite manic. It's like, whoa, is it like this? And now I have to go to the bathroom. I have to run to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So next time I sit down for a longer period, my intention is to bring body awareness.
Well, I think with electronic music, you have to be there for a long time as well. For some reason, it just you have to be, or I end up in one place for a very long time in a sort of mania, and then afterwards it's really hard to talk to anybody because I've been in such a non-verbal sort of manic state. I really like it. There's a sort of meditative quality to that mania.
What do you do when that inspiration comes? Do you start playing it, or do you start writing it down, or start making, like, what's the transmutation process from like within to without, like?
Yeah, for me, I think I hear it in my head first and then I just start singing it. And sometimes it comes also with a movement, or it's like not only a melody, it's like a whole kind of energy. I don't know. That comes and I start singing it and moving with it. And then when I know the melody, it's like I go to my guitar, or I try to find maybe some chords that can support this melody of coming through.
So,
Yeah, and then the words come.
and it's generally in that order.
Most often it is in that order. Sometimes words just come like straight like a poem, and then I can try to look for a melody, but the melody never becomes as pure. when I can create a melody for any poem that comes through, but those melodies are not like, I don't know, they are not as pure as the melodies that come straight without any words first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I find that if I've gone to find them, then it's much harder to remember them as well. If you ever sort of find that you've been working on something for hours and then like you stop listening to it and you can't remember what it sounded like. Have you experienced then kind of creative blocks that you've had to move through, or do you tend not to get yourself in those situations?
I just drink more coffee.
Yeah. One more coffee always solves your blocks.
So is
I had a
coffee
big
not a shared, is coffee not a passion that you share?
It is for sure,
It sounded more like it was
yeah,
just for your creative process, because like I know that sometimes I go in phases of like I love coffee, and other times I'm like, oh, I can't touch it again for a while.
Yeah.
yeah. We've both been on coffee for quite a while now, but it's actually finishing this weekend.
Oh, really?
So from next week we go into so I've made a lot of music, and the big creative parts are we made a deadline together on coffee and the music, and like so all the tracks are kind of there. They're just gonna be mixed and polished from next week on.
Would this be an album then? Is this a new album that's
Yeah, that's the plan. I'm still
amazing?
kind of a
Wait.
bit hesitant or like shy about saying yes, it's an album, but
It is an album. I've heard it.
Congratulations.
It's a curated collection of songs with the
it's
same number of songs that would traditionally be on an album.
it's a bunch of tracks that are gonna be in with the same picture on Spotify.
If you want to call that an album, you can,
It's up to you.
Oh, brilliant. When can we expect to hear that?
I don't know how the work process is going to go from next week without coffee, and like, so I can't. But I would like to get it out before summer.
I admire you coffee drinkers. I can't go near it. It makes me feel like I'm about to die.
Really? Yeah. I
Like
also have some really bad trips on coffee sometimes.
Me too. I don't know why I go back to it, except when it's good, it's really good.
Yeah. Now this last weeks I've been in work mode. It's like that's another type of work than the creative work, but I've been creating my website and doing some business stuff, and then like I can have some coffee and it really works great for that. But I haven't created any new songs this period, so looking forward to get off the coffee and allow more of the natural flow to come through again.
Yeah, same for me. I'm gonna play more. I haven't played the harp. I've just been in front of the computer. It's still been creating music, but quite different from sitting down with the harp, and so I'll go back to that from next week.
It's interesting, all of these different types of work and play, and how something can still be music or still be play, but it can be kind of that more intense flavor of like the bit that has to happen in front of the computer. Do you feel like you use the word work and play kind of differently in relation to each other and have kind of more stuff coming from play? Or do you feel like there's this distinction between work and play that's still there?
It's a good question. Yesterday we did a breath work online, but we ended up calling it a breath play because it's not necessarily about working with the breath, but maybe
That's
playing
really good
with the breath. So yeah, I think with whatever we can consider it work or play.
I just went to write down Breathplay and wrote down started writing breathwork. That's how like Oh, that's wonderful.
That's such a beautiful spin, which is it's one of those ones that's so obvious once it's been vocalized and introduced, but I would never have seen it otherwise or thought about it.
I do have one more burning question, which is how do you know when a track is finished?
I just know it.
I've never had that feeling.
But you've released things, Robbin.
But not
Yeah, I think I just eventually have to give up.
Okay, you get to the point of sort of saturation and frustration, and you want it.
I think I have moments of like, this track is done, but most of the tracks in the next moment is like, I could do that. I could.
So does someone else have to intervene, or
that would be great to have someone intervening.
I think for your last release, I was kind of like, it's good enough now.
but Torunn, you just know.
I just ask the song, is there more? And if the song says no, this is it, then the song is finished.
So
you're very balanced. You're very
yes,
it's really quite amazing. Can I just come and watch you for a while? just go about your life. I just want to just.
Can you come in and ask my songs if they're finished?
Sure. I don't know if I can communicate with your songs directly because they are coming to you. But the songs that come to me, they will let me know when they're done.
Just imagine. Well, how do you know?
I don't know if that's aspirational or inspirational.
How do you know? How do you know when a poem is finished?
I also feel like there is a dialogue there. It's the writing of a poem is this kind of like playing with, I guess modeling clay would be a good example. You're moving the clay, you're chipping bits off, you're aware that you've put that bit there and you're going to kind of maybe wedge it back in a bit later, or no, but you're still going to remember that it's on the side, and you kind of and it bothers you and you go back in because you know there's these bits on the side that need to get worked in. There's this metaphor that you started the whole thing in order to use that you haven't used yet, and then eventually you've got the bits in some kind of like all together way, and then after that everything is tinkering, and so I can kind of feel like, well, I might send it to someone, it might be done. And usually actually I'll send it to someone and then I'll see it, or it will be in WhatsApp, I'll have sent it to you. And then I'll be like, no, edit, delete. I can finally see how it actually needs to be. And there'll be some final tweaks that it's that birthing it too early. And then, which I guess isn't a good analogy for a real birth at all, but the ability to kind of bring it back and then just say, okay, now I see what's got to change about this, and then it's done.
Yeah, but I think you're pointing to something really important, at least for me. It's one thing to be here at the computer and be like fully inside the track, but to export a version and go into the kitchen and cook and listen together with Torunn, or go in the car, and both to have a completely different physical space, me being in a different space, and having someone else there, someone else present. It's like makes the experience quite different. I usually notice if it flows, it sits, and or as you say, like, oh no, shit, something is obviously needs to be. Yeah.
It can be a disappointing process sometimes. I've certainly felt that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's that thing of it being it's bigger than your own head. Once it's in the car or in a room or in someone else's head, then it's that experience is kind of happening in so many more dimensions. So you can maybe look at it from more dimensions.
Yeah, something like this.
I think I need to finish some tracks because I find that I keep like almost sort of making the same tracks again. Like I'll make another track. I'm like, wait a minute.
You've definitely got an album.
I'm like, this is the same as that other track that I didn't finish. So okay, yeah, I think it's time to. Okay. I feel inspired all night.
This has been so beautiful. I think this is kind of maybe quite a good natural close. I also feel very inspired and like relaxed. I feel like there's a palpable like way of being that you've managed to kind of infuse me with through the screens. I'm feeling very grateful for that.
Oh yeah. So where can people find your work? Have you got any retreats coming up? Have you?
And there's the app as well. Yeah, the details of the app would be great to share as well.
The app, which one?
It's the open one that I was looking at. Okay. But is there another one too?
No, yeah, it's. I have a few sessions on the app, but it's not really. Yeah, I don't produce much for it anymore. But so mainly our website is OYNS, OYNS.no, and we have 2 retreats every year. So we have one now in 4 weeks.
But it's fully booked.
Yeah, and the next one is in September.
Yeah.
So it's 16 people usually, and this breathwork practice that we practice and teach is at the heart of it, but it's also all kinds of practices, embodiment activities, singing, moving, dancing, ice bathing, relating exercises, and all through the lens of what's happening in your nervous system and how to befriend your nervous system, how to become more intimate with what's happening moment to moment and also more okay with what's happening, and how can we also regulate ourselves.
You certainly seem to be embodying it.
Befriend your nervous system is such a lovely phrase. I really like that.
It's a good one, yeah.
We're working on building an online library also with the courses.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it can also be found through our website when it's ready.
We also have a free breathwork experience every other Wednesday that anyone can tune into. You can just go to our website and sign up to get the Zoom link.
Wow, you're very busy. Very busy.
It's been so interesting and inspiring. Thank you.
It's great to hear. It's lovely to be here with you.
Yeah, I feel inspired too. Thank you for opening up this little space, inviting us.